Hello, I'm Cormac. You're listening to Queerly Beloved, supported by Amazon Music. In this series, I invite DJs and musicians, friends and allies from the LGBTQ+ community to talk about music, queerness, and anything else that shapes their unique story. It is my hope that in sharing our individual experiences, we can learn and grow and focus on our similarities rather than our differences. You can find all of the music mentioned in today's episode and each episode at the link in the episode description. Every once in a while, a band comes along that shakes up the norm and crosses musical boundaries. The XX are one such band. Their albums are known worldwide and regarded as timeless pieces of music. Romy Madley Croft is best known as a singer, songwriter and guitarist for the XX, and in solo mode as a DJ and pop star. Her debut album, Mid-Air, is the queer love pop album that the world has been waiting for. I'm thrilled to have her as my very first guest on Queerly Beloved. Romy, my dear, I'm so grateful that you take time for us to have a chat today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy you asked me, and I wanted to make the time. I'm just about to go on tour tomorrow. I'm at home today just packing and being with my dogs and just trying to get ready for the next stage. But yeah, it's lovely to speak to you.
Romy, I want to ask you who you are, how you identify, and what it is that you do.
Well, my name is Romy, and I don't know. That's actually such a straightforward question that I don't know. Who am I? What do you write when you have to fill out a form that says like occupation? What do you put?
What do I put? I mean, I usually write, it depends on the day. I kind of got used to writing DJ.
Yeah.
But, you know, there were some countries that I played in when I first started where maybe you needed a visa and I didn't necessarily have a visa, so I wouldn't write DJ, I would write something else. And sometimes when I go to write DJ, I almost pause in case I'm like, shit. And I kind of had to like educate myself that this is actually my job. So I usually write DJ, sometimes I write musician.
It's cool. I love the idea of writing DJ. I think that's something that feels very glamorous to me. I guess I've been typically write musician, but in the summer when I was recently just DJing, I traveled somewhere just for one day and was just by myself, and they were like, well, who are you? What do you do? And like, why are you here for one day? And I was like, I'm a DJ. And it felt kind of exciting to say that. And then they were like, this is crazy that you're here for one. It's post-COVID, I guess, to be traveling that quickly was unusual. But it was exciting to me to embrace a different way of performing and traveling, and because typically with a band you kind of have a lot of equipment and stuff and it's less lightweight, but there's something quite exciting and spontaneous to me of like being able to just go somewhere to DJ and be lightweight and and connect with people and be able to leave, and so that's exciting.
You really don't have to add anything. Some people might have said how they identify like in terms of their sexuality or their identity.
Oh, okay.
I interviewed Peaches last week and she said she identified as a fruit.
That's wonderful. I think my instinct was like, I mean, I'm a human being. I don't know. Yes. But I think I would say I identify as a lesbian and as queer and a person who's just out there just trying my best.
That's more than enough. A big impetus for doing the podcast for me has been because we have so much focus on our identity at the moment, and rightly so, especially for non-heteronormative people who haven't felt recognised. I think it's very important that identity is recognised.
I agree. I think it's like, you know, when I think about myself as a teenager, and like when you're sort of just looking for role models, or you mentioned Peaches. I mean, Peaches was someone that was hugely inspiring to me. That was my first gig ever. I saw Peaches play at Brixton Academy. I was just so blown away. And Peaches is an incredibly empowering performer, especially to me, who was such a shy teenager.
And where did you grow up, Romy?
I grew up in southwest London, in Wandsworth. And so going to Brixton Academy was like a bus ride away.
Were people in your family, like, were your parents into music?
Yeah, I think you appreciate things about family retrospectively, but I realized that my parents loved music as like a sort of something that was listened to at dinner time. It was always the kind of ritual that my dad or mum would put on a record or like put on some music to sit down to eat. And I think that's something I really love now. And we would sit and listen, and it would not, there'd be some conversation. But my mum died when I was 11, and my dad was quite a shy and quiet person. So then when we would sit just the two of us together, he maybe wasn't the kind of loudest at the table. So we would just sit and listen to this music in silence. And that to me feels very like beautiful and sort of sad now, but in a lovely way, that he would just pick something for us to listen to that was always very eclectic. And
Wow.
And it was very different to, you sort of go to friends' houses and there's silence and conversation. And I was thinking, what's happening? Where's the music? So I think that makes me appreciate how much music was a part of their kind of rituals, and that makes me feel kind of happy when I think of those memories.
It's beautiful, and there's an intimacy to that as well, like experiencing music maybe in the absence of talking. And Prince said that sometimes we're not ready to express all of the feelings inside of us, and for that we have songwriting.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm romanticizing it, but
No, I love that. I think that those experiences, maybe it makes sense to me now why I maybe was quite early on in my life making a lot of mixed CDs for girls and the things I couldn't say. It was something that I had been experiencing, I guess, like through him sharing music with me, and I think that that's beautiful. And I really relate to not being able to say something, so writing it into lyrics has been something that I've explored a lot in my life.
Well, yeah, and also, like, if your wife's saying, "Is that how you feel?" It's like that's also
exactly
what you've been doing as well.
Yeah, totally. I thought, oh God, I've done it again. Yes, I really like you.
It's so amazing. 11 is so young to lose your mama.
Yeah,
it's a tough one.
It was a huge shock, and it was not expected. So I think that it has taken me a long time, and it's something I'm still processing. But I think that grief has been a big part of my life, and my dad died when I was 20. So I think I've experienced different big sort of quite pivotal moments in my sort of childhood, and then sort of moving into adulthood, and it's made me, I've learned some life lessons quite young, but it also makes me see life in a way that is I am grateful for. I think I appreciate things in a different way. So I try and see the positives, but it is challenging.
Grief's a motherfucker, isn't it? Because it's I lost my mum 7 years ago, and I lost my dad when I was 18, and I feel also that grief has like been kind of there from the start in a way, like, or quite early on in the unpicking of that and how it can seep into perspectives and stuff. It's a long filtration of grief. I mean, the other day my father was dead, I think 20 something years, and I mean, I'm still processing that to some degree, and I have different recollections, and like it's more peaceful to think of him now than it used to be, and it's a very long journey. It's almost like, I hear my friends complain about their parents, and I think, well, sort it out as best you can, because when they're gone, they're not actually gone.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been interesting in my life and in music, like trying to figure out, like talking about how I feel. Like I've always been quite a person that says, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. And sort of wearing that as like a badge of honor. But at the same time, sort of realizing actually sometimes I'm not okay. And things just kind of, whether you can push things down, but they do come up sometimes when you least expect it. And I've tried to express that more in songwriting and in this album.
Your dad, was he cool with the gay stuff?
He was actually, and I'm very grateful for that, to have felt that from him. In a way, we were more our relationship was more like friends. You know, he was quite, he wasn't a super authoritative figure. He kind of gave me a lot of independence and trust at a young age, which is why, one of the reasons maybe why I was going out in Soho at 16 and 17. And I'm grateful for that trust, because I had, experiences that changed my life, but he never made me feel that it wasn't okay. He just sort of very subtly acknowledged it. He used to work in the local library, and he one day brought me back a flyer from the sort of, I can't remember what it was called in those days, but it was basically like a queer book fair. And he'd like left it next to my computer, and I sort of looked at him and he looked at me, and it was an exchanged silent acknowledgement. So I'm very grateful for that sort of generosity of him, just sort of letting me know he acknowledged it and it was okay.
That's very cool as well, because, no teenager kind of wants their dad to sit and talk about their sex life or their love life anyway. So that was a very cool move on your dad's part.
Yeah, no, I'm grateful for that. I mean, I was definitely giving him, when he started to date again, I was trying to give him advice as well. So it was more like a friendship, which I love. In retrospect, I love thinking of that now.
Can you choose for me a track, Romy, when you speak about those times sitting at the dinner table and listening to music? Is there one particular record or track that you could mention that brings you back to that time?
There's so many, I think. It was hard to choose, but I think I picked Dionne Warwick, Walk On By, because I realized sort of in my adult life, I suddenly knew all the words to all of this Dionne Warwick Bacharach music. And I was just sort of singing it. And I was like, why do I know this music? Like, well, this music is like in my subconscious. And it's quite lyrically intricate. And I realized that I had a memory of sitting with both my parents, which I don't have a huge amount of memories of both of them together, because I was young when my mum passed away. But yeah, this song, I just have a memory of listening to it together at the dinner table. And I think, it's still a song I love today, and the amount of emotion in it. And it's just a brilliant song, and it felt like a nice one to share.
And we mentioned Peaches as a first introduction to queer music, let's say. Is there a Peaches track you could choose?
Yeah, I think there's so many that it's, I think Fatherfucker as an album, like, it was something that I just, I remember I bought that for Jamie from the XX for his birthday, which we laugh about now. But, at this time he was really into electronic music, and I just thought that he'd really like the production, and he does. And we listened to it on vinyl together back then. And a song that now, when I listen back to that album, I still really love is Tombstone Baby. I think it's such a cool, amazingly produced track. A song that I'd like to play that out in a club. I've never done that. It's pretty crazy BPM that I'd love to pick Tombstone Baby.
It's a great choice, and the video also is great.
Yeah, no, I love that video.
It's so great. Actually, when I spoke with Peaches last week, quite funnily, she told me she got signed to Sony and they were very excited, but then she made a video where her pubic hair was growing and growing and growing, and then they weren't so excited. When you make music, Romy, do you often start with lyrics, or do you start with the musical idea, or how is your beginning process?
It's changed. When I first started songwriting, I used to just write poems. I was, it wasn't until I was super happy with all of the words on the page that I had the confidence to sing it. So I used to just really obsess over the words and then be very shy about singing it.
Oh God, yeah.
But if I was proud of the words, then I'd be a bit more comfortable singing it. And so it was like that for a long time. Then I got into writing with other people, sort of pop songwriting. And the whole idea of that is you're sat with a stranger and somebody just plays a chord on the piano, and you're there as the singer or the top line writer. So they're sing something. And I was I froze, because I sort of thought, well, I don't have my words that I've perfected. I just, and then that's where the whole kind of a new method of working came for me, which is just melody writing. And that's how a lot of, I guess, is more typically a style of songwriting that the melody leads and then you fit lyrics to a melody. And so then a lot of my new music has been melody first, lyrics second. And that was really fun and different to just explore.
Yeah, and kind of, get the hook of the track nailed first in a way, maybe, or get the... Yeah, and then fit things in around it. In a way, I would imagine that's quite freeing, because I haven't written songs, certainly not to the extent that you have, but I also write poetry and have tried to fit that into tracks, etc. And sometimes that's so soul-bearing that it's like gut-wrenching to sing in front of someone or to expose what it is you've been feeling. Whereas, how you describe it, if you're kind of focusing on, let's get the vibe of this thing going first, I think that kind of frees it up or something. It makes it less personal. I don't know. I've had the experience sometimes that things can be so personal that it's painful.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know that feeling very well. It's a sort of a balance of really wanting to try and get an emotion out and like process it. And but for me, songwriting has been amazing for that. But then in terms of collaborating, especially with someone you maybe don't know so well, the idea of then processing or expressing those feelings in front of them is challenging. I think that's why, I've only really only previously made music with Oliver and Jamie from the XX, and they're two of my oldest friends. So when I was kind of going into making new music, I think I wasn't thinking I was making songs for me. When I was doing these songwriting sessions, I was really curious to write songs for other people as a way to not have to feel that excruciating feeling that I'm writing this honest song. I could just, I'm writing for someone else. But in doing that, you're not often in the room with the person that's going to sing the song. Sometimes you are, and I love that, because I can just talk to them and say, how are you feeling? What are you trying to express? And I love that. But in terms of a big sort of pop star, a lot of the time they just want songs sent in. So you're just given a brief, and to write a song about anything for someone you've never met, for me, ended up meaning that I wrote very personal songs, because I thought I can just draw on my own experience and no one's going to know it's about me.
Yeah.
And turned out that I really enjoyed that. And people were like, why are you giving this song away? It's clearly about you. So it just took me some time to be like, actually, okay, maybe I'll keep it. But it took me a bit of time to get there.
It's so fascinating. It's kind of a dream of mine to sit in a like pop song writing brainstorm, because sometimes I feel like I've got the guts of a track, but not quite the other bits. And that collaborative thing can be really, really fun. I think for me, sometimes the personal thing was painful, because there was a long period of time where I would write from quite a depressed place. I have depression, and I managed that in various ways, but certainly I managed it through songwriting sometimes.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of depression where you're kind of just getting on with the day and getting your strength up and presenting as if you're well. And then, your songwriting is like, hey, busted.
Yeah,
you're
definitely.
Busted. Like, this is you're clearly not feeling very well. And I found that quite intense. But, I told you before, I've been listening to your album a lot. I really genuinely love it. And
thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Honestly, it's such an uplifting, heart-giddying, reassuring, beautiful piece of music.
Wow, that's very beautifully said.
Well, because I really believe it, and I really feel that from it. And I can imagine that writing from that place, because it's such a beautiful love album, that's also comes with a lot of vulnerability.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there had to be a moment in time where I just went, I'm going to not think about who's going to hear this apart from the person I'm writing it about, and try to be as honest and as open as I could, and not worry too much about whoever's going to hear it. it was funny because I wrote quite a lot of the songs in lockdown, and it was just me and Vic, who's now my wife, who a lot of the songs are about, at home together, and there's no collaboration really in that sense, that in terms of like I'm just sat there writing a song, and she'd come into the room and I'd say, oh, can I play you what I'm working on? And then obviously it's about her, so then she's like, she was like, wow, is that really how you feel? And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah. Have I not? I'm sorry if I haven't said that to you in words. But is it a good song? Should I carry on? Is this kind of mixed expectation or sort of responsibility I put on her to be like an A&R and the recipient of a love song. But she was brilliant at that.
There's that thing about when you make music, you really, or when you make anything, I guess, is to enjoy the process and forget the outcome. And I guess part of writing songs is to maybe, at least writing very personal things, as you describe, is to forget maybe that they will be listened to or not put yourself in that situation of how is this received, because we never really know how it's received. We're only really in charge of what we put into it, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. I think, for just taking on some experience I've had from releasing music with the XX, is that with our first album, I really didn't expect very many people to hear it, apart from a very small group. And I had to go through the process of realizing more people were hearing this music than I ever imagined. And it was very personal. And I, in the end, loved how personal it was, and then it reached more people, but it was out of my hands. That was just like a shyness. Then making music since, then you're sort of more aware, oh, someone's going to hear this song. And so on this project, I just tried to kind of reconnect with that energy of when we made the first album, and I didn't know who was going to hear it. I just was trying to express an emotion, and it was good to reconnect with that and try and be a bit naive with it again.
It's kind of insane, like how massive that first album was. It changed things a bit. It's funny to hear you say, I didn't really expect so many people to hear it. Because it just kind of crossed so many different avenues of music, and it touched a lot of people. And there's a few tracks on that album, I think, that probably belong to the people now. It's kind of bizarre. It's like, they've become so ingrained in a certain generation's ear.
It is crazy. I think, a song like Intro, which is the first track on the album, which Oliver and I joke about, is the one song that doesn't actually have us singing on. I've seen that song emerge in situations that I could never imagine. I think it was on the World Cup final penalties. They were playing that.
Wow.
And I was like, what? You just sort of think it's something that we made when we were like 19 that is now sort of out there in the world in these different experiences of kind of high intensity sport moment, which I love. Is not what we were ever imagining, but I love that that's where it's ended up, and that's what's beautiful about music. Once it's out in the world, it's either on the BBC on Britain's Worst Eaters, or it's in someone's home. I get texts from people being like, "Did you know your song was on that?" And they're like, "Oh my god, okay."
Yeah, I think sometimes some albums and some music, there's a zeitgeist to it. The same with clubs, actually. When we first met, we were talking about a club that we both went to, the Ghetto, and having been around the world a bit and investigated various scenes in different countries and different times, there was a real zeitgeist to that time in that club in London. There was something special going on that was, you can't create that by design. It's a culmination of the people, the time, the place, what's just come before, what's about to come after.
Yeah.
There's so many elements to it where it's an intangible thing to create somehow.
Yeah, I think that I'm so grateful for that time and that club and that, I think that it's nice to, when we first spoke, that, that you know it and that you've experienced it too, because I think for me, only now, like looking back and like sort of reflecting a bit on like my love of DJing and the importance of queer clubbing and like the community and friendships and all of those experiences I had when I first went out in London, and how important and influential that was for me. And I think just wanting to celebrate that with this album I've done, but realizing that I missed that, and where is that now, and like where do I find that now, and like it makes you kind of appreciate things, I guess, in the past. But for me, that was all I knew, because that was my first kind of queer club experience, and growing up in London and that being like a place I got into underage for me was life-changing. So I feel grateful that you're saying, it was a moment in time. I'm happy that I happened to just stumble into that as my my sort of local queer bar experience.
That really was, having been in London for some years before that, that was quite a start. If that was your first gay club or, Trash Palace and stuff like those, there was such a sense of excitement and possibility.
When you say Trash Palace, I was like remembering I did flyering for Trash Palace and Ghetto.
Did you?
I was probably not a very good person to like sell the club. I looked very shy and miserable, but I had the flyers and I was standing on Old Compton Street.
Oh my God.
But yeah.
Was there a track from those times that reminds you of when you first started going out?
I think that when I think about just being like in like a queer space, I think that kind of celebration and enjoyment of pop music without irony, and like that just like appreciation that's not with this, it doesn't come from that same energy as like a wedding set. It comes, like where people are like, oh, this we're listening to this.
Yeah.
It's like, I love this song and here we are, we're listening to this song, and we're loving it. And I really resonated with that, and that's something that has stayed with me so much. And just that appreciation and enjoyment of pop in all its glory.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking back to when what the sort of era was. It would have been like for like current pop at the time I was going out, and I think that this Madonna album, Confessions on a Dance Floor, would have been out at around that time. And I guess there's the big songs like Hung Up and Sorry from that album, and I really love that album. But this song, Get Together, it really it makes me think about. I remember hearing this and just like there's a feeling of like a hazy, clubby, poppy, like kind of combination that that makes me think of kind of going out at that time. And it's one of the ones that I always kind of wanted to hear in a club. And I feel like maybe I heard it once or twice, but in reaction to that, I now play it when I DJ as a sort of wanting to, just to hear it loud, and it takes me back to that time.
Do you know what? It's so funny you mentioned that track, because that album is just great. And like, I think there are so many different Madonnas through time.
Yeah.
But Madonna, when she's like a call to action, like get up and dance.
Yeah.
She does it so well. And that track, when I heard that album, Hung Up, was the single, and I think Jump was the single and something else. But Get Together was the really standout one for me, because it felt really like dubby French house. And I learned recently, I don't know if it's correct, that it was based on, the idea of it was based on Stardust. The music sounds better with you.
Oh yeah.
It was kind of based on the structure of that. But I must ask you, because you've been working with Stuart Price, what's that like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Stuart and of his production and all of the different projects he's done. And Confessions on a Dance Floor was just on my reference playlists when I was making this album. And my manager said to me, why don't you have a conversation with Stuart? And that's not something that you just can happen all the time. So I wasn't expecting it to happen, but he was lovely, and we just became friends very naturally and spoke loads about pop music and dance music and the way they intersect. And he's very generous with me asking that sound on Get Together, like me like geeking out about the production details, and and he's like, oh, that's a reversed sound and this is this, and so for me, I was very excited to work with him, and it's really cool and unique to be like, oh, this is my reference song, but that you made this song. Oh wow, okay.
It's insane.
It's crazy. But he was lovely at embracing that. Not it's not that I wanted to make something to drag him back into his past work. It didn't feel energetically like that. He felt excited to like explore some of those sounds and those references again, which I was grateful for, and it was fun to kind of get some of the behind the scenes fun facts.
Something with your album, when I listened to it, I didn't immediately know that Stuart was involved in it. Not until I read the credits, because I'm a credit geek.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing, because it's a credit to him, because he doesn't do the same thing each time.
Yeah.
And I really feel like there's a delicacy to your album that was also present in the XX, but it's very different. And it seems like a bit of a theme for you. And I think it sounds like you.
Oh, thank you. It took me quite a long time to figure out, okay, if I am going to make music outside of the XX, what does it sound like? And I'm really drawn to these kind of dance sounds, but like pop dance, and like things that feel not alienating sounds. I want people to feel drawn in, warm, and like accessible. I worked with quite a lot of different producers, and I was drawn towards people who make kind of dance music, and realizing that finding the kind of right collaborator to make songs that you can dance to but also sing along to, and like finding that balance between pop and dance took me longer than I expected, and was a big learning experience. But I had a kind of a clear vision in my head, I think, and I was very obsessed with trying to find that balance, and between working with Fred again and like us just really bonding over a love again of pop and the song, as well as the dance music production side, and really connecting with him on that. And then sort of figuring out, well, okay, how do I make it sound like me though? Like not like Fred, not like Jamie, who worked on some songs, and I think Stuart really helped me take those elements and find my own balance with it, and help me feel empowered to have my ideas. And I mean, so did Fred as well. It was nice to find those friendships where they were like encouraging me to like, what's in your head, you know? And I think I've gotten more I'm really obsessed with production details and structure and the flow of a song, and so that's very much my involvement in the production. It's like I'm obsessed with all the elements, you know, and finding that balance, especially on a song like Enjoy Your Life, where there's all these samples, there's a song in there, there's these different rhythms. I want people to be dancing and feeling the emotion. I spent a long time with all the different stems just trying to find that balance. I was trying to find what was in my head, I guess.
You did a very good job, I must say, because there's a euphoria there that I would associate more with the good side of, everyone's talking about the 90s, they never stop talking about the 90s, but the good side of like, you know, elements of trance. But part of trance, for example, was a very long extension of things in a build, but there's a euphoria that hits in your album that is reminiscent of that, but done in a very pop structure way, and it's very clever. The other thing I love about your album is that it's like 36 minutes long or something. And I have this theory, I don't know if it's true, but I feel like all the really great classic pop albums are less than 45 minutes.
Okay, that's interesting.
You know, punk, for example, one of the great things about punk music was that every track was like 3 minutes. It was like, you get up, you do it, and the message is there. And I think when the message is there and the elements are right, it's like a smack in the face. It's not, that's maybe not a good analogy. I grew up in Northern Ireland, sorry.
No,
it doesn't have to be drawn out. It's like, boom, that's it, we hit it. And your album has that. There's a punk sensibility to it in that regard of just being very potent.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with that as well. I think that I love this concept that the perfect pop song is 3 minutes 30. Like whenever I sort of work on something structurally and it fits in less time than that, I'm very satisfied. I'm really conscious that I wanted the song, the moment you press play, there to be a sound that catches your ear so you know what the song is, even if it's subconscious.
I put your album on most mornings. I find it like really uplifting. I don't always wake up in the best headspace. My headspace is like something I have to to work on. It's a practice of different things to try and get me in the right headspace, and music is one of them.
Yeah.
And I find your album very uplifting and positive and hopeful. And one of my friends said to me, like, it's really lovely to hear a same-sex love album that's so positive. A lot of our music throughout time, like if you think of like Small Town Boy,
Yeah.
or even Culture Club and stuff, all of that was kind of about unrequited love. You know, that was like
Yeah.
a broken heart of like a gay guy falling in love with a straight guy, and it's just never going to work.
Yeah.
And your album is so positive. It's like if I was a kid listening to that now, I mean, that's so encouraging.
Well, that means a lot, that to hear you say that. I mean, that's all I'd ever hope for. You know, in the past I have written a lot of not so explicitly queer love songs about heartache, and I was just excited to have the opportunity. It sort of gave me motivation, and like it kind of allowed me to give myself the permission to make a solo project, with the intention to try and make something that was positive and a celebration of queer love, and to kind of hopefully be a step to normalizing that within the frame of like a pop song, you know. And think that if these songs make it onto like a mainstream radio station, and then somebody clocks, oh, is she singing? Did she just say I love her? You know, and then that be oh, that's fine, that's okay, and a little step towards normalizing it, I would be so happy. It was really interesting to hear that like She's on My Mind, a song from the album, is like doing really well at the radio in Turkey. And I thought, that's amazing, you know, like great. But it's just fascinating how once you have that intention and you make the song and you put it out into the world, and you don't know what's going to happen. But I love the idea that people are listening to it.
You're like a stealth queer revolutionary sneaking same songs into Turkey. I love it. It's like, do you know, like Freddie Mercury like had a rock and roll band, looked like a complete clone, called it Queen, and the majority of people who loved it were straight, and a lot of people did not get that he was a big Queen.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's so stealth to do that. I mean, jokes aside, you should be really proud of that, because I think we don't have enough of that in our ears and in our world for generations. You know, the queer people in our media, we've had our depth taken out of us somehow. Like we're either the comic effect, or, you know, like there's usually some male perspective involved when it's two women together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's always this kind of devaluing or defusing of our identity. And I think you should be really proud to put that out as your first album, because you know the effect that music can have on us, and music can change kids' lives. And, you know, you had Peaches, someone now has you know. That's really,
oh wow,
really amazing, Romy.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that. That's all I could ever really hope for from doing that.
When did you make the click to think, I could make music, or I could perform, or I could DJ, or when did that happen?
I think I started writing songs as a way to express how I was feeling in my head, but it was very private and I was very shy about sharing that with anyone. I used to whisper it late at night when I was singing to myself so that my dad didn't hear. I was not the kid at school that wanted to be on the stage, or, you know, look at me, or it was kind of quite counter. It didn't quite match up, I think, to my extended family. When I said, I make music, they were quite shocked. And at that time, Oliver from the XX and we've been best friends since we were 3, so we've grown up together. And I said to him, by the way, I think I like singing. And then he was like, what? And then I was like, what do you mean? Why? What? And he's like, wait, so do I. And it was this kind of quite unexpected secret side of both of us that we then shared with each other. So it was no, I don't want to sing, you sing. And then we sang together. And that's kind of how the band started, is we sang together and our voices kind of fit, which I love, and we didn't really try to do.
Had you both come out to each other at that point?
Let me think. I think yes. I think that was quite early on in us coming out to each other. But yeah, I think by then we would have done. Yeah, it just felt like another extension of our friendship. and we both were obsessed with music, going to gigs, and it felt fun to just try it ourselves. And I think through MySpace, that was a big vehicle to share music at the time. We just made some music and put it on MySpace. And it was I'm grateful for that as a way to just create something and share it with the world. In doing that, we ended up starting to play some gigs, and I don't think we looked like we wanted to be on the stage probably for about 2-3 years of doing it. And it was for some reason we just kept doing it, and I think that I'm grateful we did, and it felt like at that time playing live was very much part of the the people we admired, or the scene that we were drawn towards, of like sort of more indie music at that time. People played live, so there we were, sort of standing there, feeling very self-conscious. But over time, I think we really loved it and grew into it. I think we love the songwriting and the creation side, but I think the performance element has been something we've grown into, both of us. And that's I guess a slightly high speed version of events.
And the DJing came after then? Is the DJing more recent?
I started DJing around the same time as we started playing live. So I got given the opportunity to DJ at Ghetto. So that was my introduction to DJing. I used to go there all the time, and then it was sort of said, well, would you like to DJ? And I said, well, I don't know how. And he said, well, just burn some CDs and come back next week. You fade it in and out. I was like, okay. And it was empowering just to think, I'm just going to give this a go. And what I loved is that it helped me, as a shy person, connect with a room full of people in a way that I couldn't through talking, but through playing a song and feeling the energy and the reaction of people, grateful to hear it or excited about what was coming out of the speakers. That made me feel so excited and alive and connected to them, and a feeling that I still love now. But I stopped DJing when the XX were touring. I think I had an experience where I had the opportunity to DJ after an XX gig, and I played a lot of the music that I'd been playing at Ghetto, and people said to me, "Are you taking the piss?"
Oh, and
I was like, "What do you mean?" I was just playing joyful pop dance music that I loved, and it was just very different, I think, to the music that we were making with the XX, and
that's so interesting.
Just different to the perception that maybe someone that's coming to see our band would have thought that I was into, and it honestly made me freeze.
Did that put you off DJing for a bit?
It did. I think at that age, I think I was probably 20, and I think at that point I was so grateful that people were interested in our band. I didn't want to do anything to disrupt it. I just was so protective of this kind of new thing that was growing, that I found that experience quite confronting. And I don't know, it made me feel a little bit confused. And I think I definitely hid and just took a step back from being as visible about my sexuality, about my love of pop music. I just kind of retreated a bit. And I think that's naturally maybe just having a sort of spotlight shone on me at that age. I kind of was just more private, and I understand why, but I also think I got to the point where I was like, oh, I really miss this, and I really want to celebrate my love of everything that I've kind of been more guarded about. And I think this whole project has been me sort of realizing that I've gone back to that moment where someone kind of confronted me and questioned it, and now I'm going, yes, I love this and I don't care, I'm going to continue it. But it sort of stopped me in my tracks for a bit.
It's almost like a second coming out.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder, as queer people, do we naturally closet some things, because if you grow up everyone's experience is different, but if you grow up in a culture where there's not so many positive references, you do learn, I'll speak for myself, kind of learn to edit parts of myself or hold parts of ourselves back. I think probably all people do that to some degree, but maybe as queer people we have less positive reference points, and we get very good at that. I mean, I was in the closet with my sexuality. I was in the closet with my drug addiction. I was in the closet with my depression. I've been in so many closets. I mean, I could have a clothes collection. It's insane.
Yeah.
And then going back and finding those things, and there might be more joy to be found in confirming and affirming your love of pop music, maybe more than saying I'm a drug addict. But there is value in both of those things because they're step forwards, you know, they're like, this is how it is. I have to.
Absolutely. And it's a releasing of needing to like have that masking and like that veiling of these things that are real. And whether it is a love of pop music or you know, an addiction, I think it's good to like let it go and like be able to be honest.
Yes.
And so many different things. But yeah, how did you feel being more open about things?
Well, I was in the closet to myself about my addiction. I didn't realize I had a problem with drugs and alcohol. I did have a slight indication when I moved from Ireland to England, and it was quite messy. And I thought, oh, people don't get as drunk and as wasted here. But I just thought, oh, I'm Irish.
Right.
But then it just kind of, it kept going. And really, you know, it certainly wasn't perhaps as messy as some people, and it was messier than other people's. But really, for me, the problem was the inside chaos. You know, I was trying to self-medicate with substances. I had quite bad depression, and I was using substances to try and medicate that. And then, of course, in the end, you know, that got quite messy, and then it also stopped working. So I was kind of pushed into a situation to confront that. And although I had a lot of madness, I somehow also had some common sense, and I was able to say, okay, like, I'm spinning my wheels here, and I can't imagine that my journey into my mental health is going to be much fun, but it's never going to get better until I stop throwing hand grenades into the equation on weekends.
Yeah.
So I kind of went and got a lot of help, and I started to go to 12-step groups, and I got a therapist, and I still lean heavily on those. You know, I'd been partying like since I was 14, really, like ingesting something to change the way I feel since I was 14. And stopping that, like learning how to live life without something to change how I feel. It was like learning a new language. It was like waking up. I had to get help. It was just stopping that and knowing how to do it would be saying like, okay, you know, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to be fluent in Finnish. It was like, I was obviously going to have to invest time and effort into learning how to do that because I didn't know how to. So, I mean, in terms of the closet question, I talk about it here with you, and I talk about it sometimes with people. I don't run about with it on a t-shirt, but only because I felt like when I was getting wasted and when I was very messy and a liability to my friends, I feel like it took up a lot of space. And I don't then want my sobriety to take up a lot of space, you know?
Right.
I kind of want to be open about it in that I'm not ashamed of it. I don't regret anything. And I also, you know, addiction is no stranger to us as queer people. We're 3 times more likely to deal with addiction, 3 times more likely to deal with mental health issues. And I think, you know, I don't have all the answers, but talking about it surely must help other people, you know, like we need to talk about it.
Definitely. I was going to say that I think although I respect and I understand what you're saying about being in the place where you think that you don't want to take up space by talking about your sobriety, I also think that hearing you talk about it and the way that you acknowledged that you wanted to make some changes and you figured out ways to help yourself is very inspiring and beautiful to hear that.
That's very kind of you to say. Thank you. It's also maybe not the conversations that we're so used to having in club spaces.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like very often we're at our best or in some elevated form, but a lot of people suffer during the week. A lot of people don't. A lot of people are having great times and more power to them. You know, if the only thing that a bit of excess costs you is money, then go for it, you know? But for me, it was costing me more. It was kind of costing me my peace of mind and my health and my friendships. And I just got really tired of wrestling with it. And it was easier. Ultimately, it didn't seem at the time, but ultimately it was easier for me just to put those things down and accept that in this lifetime, for whatever reason, wrestling with those things is it's too much of a gamble for me.
Well, I think it's amazing that you've done that, and I think it's not easy. I know, and like I have a lot of friends that I've observed and admired and sort of witnessed wrestling with addiction and not being ready to acknowledge it. So the fact that you acknowledged it and are working through it, I think is really powerful.
Thank you. It took some time. I tried to change everything except that. I tried to change everything except putting down drugs and alcohol, but it was just like rearranging furniture on the Titanic. It was like it wasn't really working out. You know, I wanted to tell you, Romy, we both had our first DJ gig at the Ghetto.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Isn't that insane?
That's so cool.
In that
Wow.
booth, in that
that's
little
so
red
special.
booth.
Yes.
Yeah.
What were you playing back then?
I was playing, I was buying vinyl for quite a while. And I remember I was playing a lot of Electroclash stuff. I would have played La Tigra, for example. I would have played also Tiga. And I would have played, what else? I was playing a lot of pop music. I mean, I really love a lot of like 12-inch dance mixes, Shep Pettibone, things like that. So my goal with DJing was to kind of find this space between the place where dance music brought me, but pop music also brought me there. I think really what you could say is like somehow merge the euphoria that I felt with dance music and somehow occasionally bring in the message of what I was getting through pop music somehow. So, but it took me a while maybe to get good at that in the way I wanted to. Mm-hmm. So I was probably playing quite a mix match of different vinyls at the time and mixing it very badly.
Oh, that's brilliant. But I love what you described about, you know, your intention with like pop and like euphoria, and like that's like I really resonate with that. I think, you know, that's still what I'm just trying to do. It's just like, you know, when I find like edits or remixes of like a really amazing pop song that's like kind of embedded in like a more like a darker club track, it's kind of like I found a track recently that's got like finally it's happened to me, like that vocal just sort of embedded in this like quite dark track. And I just love the mix. Uh-huh. And you get everyone being like, woo, and then it's very heavy.
Amazing.
I still want people to sort of be having that playful experience and that kind of connection to a nostalgic moment or, oh, this song. And I love when you can look out and see people having that like moment where they're like, oh, is it this track? That's something I always love to see.
Is there a record that you could choose from your early sets as a DJ that, so we can get an idea of what you were playing at the time?
Yeah. The reason I've picked this song is because it's something that I relied on quite heavily you were mentioning about mixing, having been given this opportunity to DJ, having no experience. I had to rely on songs that you press play. The moment you press play, there's hands in the air. And I think Hadaway, What Is Love is a song that you press play and instantly it has an impact. And I still love it for that reason. And I still have found myself in situations where a track's about to end and I'm running out of time. So I just quickly find that song and press play. And it remedies any chaotic mixing. So I did that recently. So it made me think about that time. And it's got that right level of emotion and playfulness and sing along whilst being on the dance floor. So
it's a great choice. I love that. It's a great track from that era as well. Actually, regarding Get Together, I wanted to tell you that we were both at Homo Block.
Yes.
And I didn't want to bother you prior to your gig because I don't know if you're quite chill before your gig. I'm very chill usually before my gig and I'm not super social. So I kind of thought your gig had finished and I went up to your room and I knocked on the door and I was like, oh, I want to say hello to Romy, but you weren't there.
Oh.
So, but actually prior to that, when I finished my gig and I was walking through the enormity of Homo Block, which is huge, you were playing Get Together. And I was like,
wow.
I haven't heard this in a club.
Oh,
it was
amazing.
so good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I really wished that I'd seen you at Homoblog. It's an amazing experience, Homoblog, like just to see the scale of that event.
Yeah.
I also had like quite a lot of friends there, a lot of people that were kind of excited to be letting their guard down, shall we say. And I'm like there trying to get ready for the show.
Yeah.
And I always like seeing people before the show, but I just need like 5 minutes just to like do some vocal warm-ups and stuff. So I would have loved to have seen you before. So next time, if we're in the same place, please do say hi. But I did have to like take a little bit of a moment away from everyone. Like there were so many people I wanted to see. I really wanted to see you. I really wanted to. And then when you're kind of getting ready, what I've found now, getting ready to sing and like perform is slightly different than when I'm getting ready to go up and DJ.
Absolutely.
So I needed to take a little bit more time to do my vocal warm-ups. I've done vocal warm-ups now in quite a few club environments where I just have to put headphones in and sing.
Yes.
And no one can hear me because I'm in a club, but I can hear the vocal warm-up routine. So that I probably look crazy.
You just don't want your dressing room to get so busy that you have to step out of it to have quiet. Because the point,
that is
they
quite
need to step out so that you could have your...
I would say energetically and as a person, I would be more likely to step out of my own dressing room than to ask everybody in it to leave.
Yeah.
But maybe I should be better at saying, guys, can I have some space?
So we talked about so much, and I wanted to ask you, as a touring, traveling artist and as a queer person with the life experiences that you've had, do you have a sanity practice in this crazy world?
Yeah.
Do you have like a way of staying relatively sane or buffering yourself from the craziness? I'm really curious of how we all manage it.
I'm fascinated as well to know what everyone does. I'd love to hear what you do. I think that I've been relying on Headspace quite a bit, actually, the app. There are these like sleep casts or like stories, kind of like a children's story that like just, I'm kind of interested in this kind of, if there's like a scientific balance of like what words they say to you to make you like hypnotize you asleep, because I think it must be something like that. But that feeling of after a show of like lying there and just I can't sleep, I'm just full of adrenaline and I'm just trying to wind down. So I've just been trying to find healthy ways to do that, and that's been quite helpful to sort of use that as like a mindfulness tool. I always try and get out and like see where I am. I really don't like it just going straight to the venue if I can help it. I just try and find like a place to get a coffee just to feel like I'm there. That really helps me. And just like I'm trying to work in more exercise as part of the touring experience, but that's not always easy. And just seeing a familiar face as well at festivals, I think is great for me. So please, next time it would be lovely to see you in that festival environment.
I will. I'm gonna come and hug you for sure. And do you ever get lows after performing or gigging? Do you ever get like a bit of a, like a performer low?
Definitely. I think I found after Homoblog, especially trying something new on a stage of that scale, the next day I felt quite overexposed in a way. I kind of was like, how was that? How did it go? And, looking out and trying to connect, especially in a festival environment, I love the feeling of that it's so many more new people that might be experiencing your music than they might not know who you are. And I love that. But when you're trying something new, it's sometimes a bit like you don't know how it went. and I left that experience feeling a little bit like, and that can be difficult in terms of anxiety and like feeling just like, there's a part of me that wants to try these things and put myself out there and to go out of my comfort zone. There's like an attraction to it. There's a part of me that says, go for it, try something new. And then there's the part of you that the next day that goes, whew, that was, how did that go? And I kind of battle that quite a lot of the time. I think being an intrinsically shy person that likes to try these things, there's a moment where I feel quite anxious.
I totally relate to that. And I've kind of learned not to really trust my head the day after.
Yeah, that's good.
Because I kind of realize a lot of it's tiredness. And when I'm tired, I tend to be a little bit more unkind to myself mentally.
I relate to that. My friend said we went for a dance after after my set at Homo Block, and she said, she's like, what are you thinking about right now? And I said, oh no, I don't. And she's like, are you being kind to yourself? She spotted that I went to a place where I was like maybe just dissecting the gig, and she's like, I can see you maybe being unkind. And I think that's helpful, just to recognize that maybe I like that thought, that like in therapy and stuff I've heard about the idea that would you talk to yourself unkindly, but how would you talk to your friend? You know, like, don't try and be kinder to yourself. You know, if you told me that you had a difficult gig, or, you know, the way I would talk to you would not be the same way that I just talked to myself, thought I had a difficult gig.
Exactly.
It's good to try and remember that. And I like the idea that you're saying, maybe if you're tired, it's not always trust that voice in your head.
In times that might feel a bit tough, or when you might be tired or being less kind or to yourself than we should be, is there a track you can lean on? Yes,
there's a track by Beverly Glenn Copeland called La Vita, which is the inspiration for my song Enjoy Your Life. It contains the lyrics, my mother says to me, enjoy your life, which I thought was such a beautiful sentence, and really resonated with me, sort of thinking about my mum dying when I was younger, and like just the way that I've experienced, like the kind of idea that life is short and wanting to make the best of it, but not acknowledging that that's not always easy. You know, you can have the intention to try and live life to the full and be positive all the time, but then sometimes you wake up and it's, you know, you don't feel like that. And when I heard that song, I connected to the intention of like having a song or some words that can be a reminder to like bring you back to that intention of wanting to try and see the positive. And the whole lyrics of the song are really beautiful, and just the kind of acknowledging that things can be challenging, acknowledging that, you know, there's a lot to do in the day, but then that kind of clarity of trying to enjoy life. And I watched an amazing live stream of Glenn in lockdown, and it was like a sort of almost like a spiritual sort of experience. Just I was up late one night, and he was doing a live stream, I think from Canada, and I couldn't sleep, and I was just watching this performance, and I just found it so healing and so comforting, and his energy and presence is very beautiful and wholesome and kind of kind, and I just felt like, oh, I really need this, and I was so grateful to have discovered his music.
And thank you for introducing me to it. I didn't know it.
Oh, that's great.
And it's so beautiful. Like even before the lyrics, like as an instrumental piece of music as well, it's there's something about it that's very nature.
Yeah, all of the work that he does is quite unique, and it's just really, I found it very beautiful. So that's why I chose him.
Can you give us a current killer track in your record bag?
Yeah, so I've chosen to play or to share, I should say, just a remix of Sonique that I've basically played every single time I DJ, and it's not a brand new track. It's not like a fresh sort of secret song, but I wanted to share it because I felt like it has surprised me, the way that this song, which feels very much part of my subconscious from growing up, it's kind of like a trancey remix, and I played it in different parts of the world, and people just seem to like, it whips off this kind of joyful, playful energy that I really love, and I kind of want to bottle, and I can't seem to recreate it with any other song, so I just keep playing this song. So it just kind of gets people excited, and I don't, you know, in some parts of the world I'm like, do you know who Sonique is? Do you know this song, or are you just feeling the energy of this version of it? Which I'm fascinated by. So, is
there anything you can plug or tell us? You're going on tour tomorrow.
Yeah,
you've had an insane year.
I am so grateful to have had a lot of fun this year, and to have been able to share this new music and to feel people excited about it. It means the world to me, and I'm excited in the new year to try to make some more music for this project, and to, you know, make more music with the XX, and just to keep kind of trying new things. And I did a show in London recently, and that was really special to me, to be able to play this music to a group of people that, it wasn't a festival, they had chosen to be there, and they'd chosen to listened to the album, and that was a very special experience and felt quite healing after me feeling quite vulnerable and anxious after Homo Block. And I'm going to be doing some more shows in the new year, so I guess that's my plug that but I'm looking forward to connecting in that live way, which I think is so special.
Romy, this has been such a pleasure. I mean, I know we've spoken before and there's a lovely connection there, but this has been such a privilege to sit and chat with you. I can't wait to see you again in person and give you a massive hug.
Oh, you too. It's been really lovely speaking to you, and thank you for your lovely questions and the space to talk about all of this stuff.
You've been listening to Queerly Beloved with me, Cormac. You can find the playlist of all the music featured in today's episode in the episode description. And while you're there, please do hit subscribe so you don't miss out on my conversations with other talented people. A big thank you to Michael Lane, my producer, my manager, Melissa Taylor at Tailored Communication, and of course to Amazon Music for their support. Take care of yourself. All the best. Bye.